There is a version of Mars that lives in the imagination of our species, a rust-colored world sitting quietly at the edge of possibility, patient and still, waiting like an empty stage for the great human drama to arrive. We have painted it in our fiction, mapped it in our dreams, and spoken of it with the reverence reserved for destinations that feel inevitable. We talk of boots pressing into red dust as though it is simply a matter of time, a logistical problem, a funding question, a matter of political will and engineering courage. This version of Mars is a seduction. It is a story we tell ourselves because the alternative, the true physical portrait of that world, forces us to confront something far more unsettling. Mars is not waiting for us. Mars is not neutral. Mars is not difficult the way a mountain is difficult, offering resistance that rewards persistence. Mars is operating right now as a planetary scale rejection mechanism, deploying the fundamental laws of physics with ruthless, impersonal precision to dismantle, repel, and destroy any carbon-based structure that dares to settle on its surface. This is not pessimism. This is not defeatism dressed in the language of science. This is what the mathematics actually says when you stop romanticizing the data and start reading it clearly. The universe does not organize itself around our ambitions. It does not soften its boundaries because we are clever or brave or well-funded. And Mars, this small, cold world, approximately 1.5 times farther from the sun than we are, has spent 4 billion years becoming something extraordinary in its hostility, not through malice, because physics has no malice, but through the precise operation of thermodynamic and electromagnetic laws that produce an environment functionally indistinguishable from active aggression. Consider the most elegant analogy physics will permit us here. Think of a living biological immune system, not the simplified version taught in early education, but the full, astonishing molecular machinery that operates inside every organism, detecting foreign structures, marking them for destruction, deploying cascades of chemical signals to break down and expel anything that does not belong. A human immune system does not pause to assess your intentions. It does not recognize your courage or your ambition. It measures you against a definition of self and non-self, and if you register as foreign, it mobilizes every available mechanism to eliminate your presence. Mars operates precisely this way at a planetary scale. When a foreign structure, a spacecraft, a habitat module, a pressurized suit, a human body arrives on that surface, the native physics of the planet does not wait passively. The chemical, electromagnetic, and radiative architecture of Mars immediately begins working against the coherence of that foreign object. The centrifuge of its hostile environment spins up, and the forces it deploys are not metaphorical. They are measurable, quantifiable, and lethal. Begin with the ground itself, because most of us make the error of assuming that solid ground is neutral, that it is simply a surface on which events occur. On Mars, the ground is a participant. The Martian surface has been subjected to ultraviolet radiation for billions of years without the protective filtering of a meaningful atmosphere. Earth possesses an ozone layer and a thick atmospheric column that absorbs the majority of high-energy ultraviolet photons before they reach the surface. Mars has neither. Its atmosphere is approximately 1% the density of Earth's, composed primarily of carbon dioxide, and it offers essentially no ultraviolet protection whatsoever. What this means in practical physical terms is that the Martian regolith, the fine powdered soil that covers the planet, has been continuously bombarded by high-energy photons for geological timescales. This continuous radiation bakes the surface particles, stripping electrons from their outer shells, leaving the dust with a permanent and powerful electrostatic charge. The consequences of this are not minor inconveniences. These charged particles do not simply sit on the ground like ordinary dust. They levitate. They are repelled from each other and attracted to surfaces of different charge, and they migrate through the thin atmosphere with a restless, invisible mobility that makes the Martian surface into something closer to a chemical battlefield than a desert floor. When a rover wheel rolls across that surface, or a boot presses into it, the disturbance launches clouds of electrostatically charged particles that cling to every surface they contact with extraordinary persistence. They are not like terrestrial dust, which is relatively large, rounded, and chemically inert. Martian dust particles are fine beyond the resolution of ordinary imagination, with sharp angular geometries produced by billions of years of radiation fracturing rather than water smoothing. They have never been rounded by rivers. They have never been softened by biological processes. They are tiny geometric razors, and they carry a charge that makes them adhere to fabrics, to optical surfaces, to mechanical seals, to everything. The engineering implications are devastating. Every mechanical seal on every piece of equipment a human mission would depend upon, the seals on airlocks, the joints in spacesuits, the mechanisms of life support systems, faces continuous infiltration by particles that are physically shaped to abrade and chemically activated to adhere. The Mars exploration rovers experienced progressive solar panel degradation as dust accumulated on their surfaces with a persistence that resisted wind clearing. Human spacesuits, which must flex and move and maintain pressure integrity across thousands of cycles, would face an adversary for which terrestrial engineering has no adequate solution. And if those particles reach human lung tissue, the angular geometry and chemical reactivity of Martian dust makes it profoundly more dangerous than any terrestrial particulate hazard. The ground of Mars is not passive. It is electrostatically mobilized, physically launched into the atmosphere by any disturbance, and geometrically optimized by geological chance to destroy mechanical and biological systems on contact. But the ground offers a second layer of rejection that operates through chemistry rather than physics alone. The Martian soil is heavily saturated with compounds called perchlorates. These are powerful oxidizing agents, chlorine-based molecules in high-energy states that are chemically aggressive toward organic matter. On Earth, perchlorates exist in small concentrations in certain arid environments, and we classify them as toxic contaminants. On Mars, they are present across the entire surface at concentrations that would constitute a severe hazard anywhere on Earth. The Mars Phoenix lander measured perchlorate concentrations in the range of 0.5% by mass in the soil it sampled. Subsequent missions have confirmed that this is not a local anomaly. This is a global feature of the Martian surface chemistry. What perchlorates do to organic structures is elegant in the worst possible way. They are hygroscopic, meaning they pull moisture from their surroundings with tremendous chemical affinity. In a pressurized habitat or a human body, this property creates osmotic catastrophe at the cellular level. But beyond moisture extraction, perchlorates are oxidizers, meaning they react with organic carbon compounds through processes that release energy and break down complex molecular architecture. The same property that makes perchlorates useful as rocket propellant oxidizers makes them lethal to biological systems. They interfere with thyroid function in humans at concentrations far below what the Martian soil contains. They would react with the organic materials in food production systems, contaminating soil experiments and breaking down the molecular structures that agriculture depends upon. The Martian surface does not merely fail to support organic chemistry, it actively attacks it. The chemistry of the soil is configured by the impersonal operation of geological and radiative processes to dissolve and destroy the carbon-based structures that terrestrial life requires. Consider what this means for any serious attempt to grow food in Martian soil. The romantic vision of terraformed gardens producing crops under glass domes encounters the chemical reality of a substrate that is hostile to the organic at a molecular level. Perchlorate remediation, the process of removing or neutralizing these compounds, is an enormous engineering challenge on Earth in contaminated sites. Doing it at the scale required to make Martian agriculture viable would require processing volumes of soil so massive that the energy and infrastructure demands become practically absurd. The planet is telling us, in the language of chemistry, that the surface is not available for biological colonization. And then there is the sky, or rather, the absence of what makes our sky protective. The third dimension of Martian rejection operates not from the ground upward, but from the cosmos downward, and it arrives because of something Mars lost billions of years ago. Mars once had a global magnetic field. We know this because ancient magnetized rocks in the Martian crust preserve the signature of that long-dead field locked into the mineral structure at the moment of their formation. But the Martian core cooled and solidified. the convective motion of molten iron that generates a planetary magnetic field through the dynamo mechanism ceased, and when the magnetic field died, Mars lost its most fundamental protection against the universe. A planetary magnetic field is not merely a compass-oriented phenomenon. It is a macroscopic electromagnetic structure that deflects the solar wind, a continuous stream of charged particles flowing outward from the sun at hundreds of kilometers per second, around and away from the planet. Earth's magnetosphere creates an enormous invisible bubble that redirects this stream, protecting our atmosphere from being gradually stripped away and shielding our surface from direct bombardment by high-energy particles. Mars has none of this. The solar wind interacts directly with the upper Martian atmosphere and impinges, with essentially no deflection on the surface below. The consequences arrive in two forms. First, the solar wind has been gradually eroding the Martian atmosphere for 4 billion years, which is why that atmosphere is now so thin that it provides almost no radiation shielding. Second, and more immediately relevant to human presence, the surface of Mars receives an uninterrupted torrent of high-energy radiation, including galactic cosmic rays, which are atomic nuclei accelerated to relativistic speeds by distant stellar events, and solar energetic particles produced by solar flares and coronal mass ejections. The radiation dose on the Martian surface is approximately 40 to 50 times the dose rate that a person would receive at sea level on Earth. Astronauts on a Mars mission would accumulate radiation exposure at rates that exceed the lifetime limits established by every major space agency in a matter of months. The biological mechanism of this destruction is worth understanding clearly. Galactic cosmic rays are not photons. They are not electrons. They are nuclei, bare atomic cores stripped of their electrons, moving through space at a significant fraction of the speed of light, and they carry enormous kinetic energy. When one of these particles passes through human tissue, it does not simply deposit energy. It creates a track of ionization, a trail of molecular damage through cells, through membranes, through the double helix of DNA itself. The breaks in DNA strands produced by cosmic ray tracks are qualitatively different from the kind of DNA damage that terrestrial organisms have evolved repair mechanisms to handle. They are dense, clustered lesions that overwhelm cellular repair machinery and accumulate over time, increasing cancer risk and degrading neural tissue with a relentlessness that no amount of nutritional optimization or pharmaceutical intervention can adequately counter. The universe, unfiltered by magnetospheric protection, is blasting the Martian surface with an invisible atomic gale, and no pressurized wall of current material technology is thick enough to fully stop it. The beauty in this brutal picture, and there is beauty here, is that it asks us to look honestly at what we are, and where we came from, and what the Earth has given us, without ever asking for recognition. We evolved inside a magnetic cocoon, sheltered by a field generated in the liquid iron heart of a geologically active world. We breathe an atmosphere maintained against cosmic erosion by that same field. We walk on soil that has been processed through 4 billion years of biological chemistry into something that supports rather than destroys organic structure. We live at the bottom of an atmospheric column dense enough to filter the radiation that would otherwise tear our biology apart. None of this is accidental. All of it is the result of specific planetary physics operating at specific scales for specific durations, and it produced exactly one world in this solar system where carbon-based life can exist at the surface without heroic technological intervention. The wonder available to us in the study of Mars is not the wonder of a future home. It is the wonder of a mirror held up to Earth, showing us in stark physical contrast what our world actually is. Understanding the electrostatic mobilization of Martian dust clarifies what it means to have soil pacified by water and life. Understanding perchlorate chemistry in the Martian regolith illuminates the extraordinary improbability of Earth's soil, which billions of years of biological activity have transformed into something that feeds rather than dissolves. Understanding the unfiltered cosmic radiation pouring onto an unshielded planetary surface makes the invisible architecture of our magnetosphere visible for the first time, not as background scenery, but as a fundamental physical precondition for our existence. The mathematics of planetary physics does not diminish our curiosity or our courage. It sharpens both. It asks us to explore Mars, not as colonists claiming a destiny, but as physicists reading a message written in regolith and radiation, a message that describes with crystalline precision the conditions under which life is possible, the conditions that Earth, improbably, against the vast cold indifference of the statistical universe, managed to satisfy. That is the truth that Mars is transmitting. Not silence, not invitation, but the most profound scientific gift a hostile world can offer, the knowledge earned through measurement and mathematics and a clear-eyed refusal to look away of exactly how extraordinary, how fragile, and how irreplaceable this pale blue world we already inhabit truly is.